Hi, this is Tim with the Gilson Home Group. Today I'd like to talk a little bit with you about how much can I negotiate based on the inspection that I do for the house that I'm purchasing. So one of the most important steps that we undertake after we have a home under contract is to conduct your homeowner's inspection and your due diligence. When we're talking about the inspection, we're talking about the physical structure of the building. And one of the things that we're often asked is, how much can I negotiate based on this inspection? So the thing that I always guide clients is that when we're doing our inspection, we are looking for latent defects. Those are the things that were not readily apparent at the time that you wrote the offer. So things like mold in the attic or a collapsed sewer line or a furnace that's belching carbon monoxide. Those things that the casual observer would not be able to see when they were looking at the home the first pass. So those are the things that are fair game. And how much can I negotiate is kind of like, how deep is the ocean? And it really boils down to two things. Number one, how much do you love the house and how much do you want it? And number two, what is the competition out there that you may have had to overcome in order to secure that property? Because both of those things are going to determine the path forward. So let's say, for example, you were the only buyer out there for this particular property. Guess what? The seller is going to be pretty motivated to try to keep this together in general. So our ability to negotiate with them increases. If there were 7 backup offers that we know there were several cash offers in the mix, guess what? Our ability to negotiate goes down somewhat. So the other thing that we need to be sensitive to is the sellers are emotionally attached quite often to these properties. And so we need to keep these things real. We need to be coming to them with requests that are legitimate, latent defects. Those things that we certainly couldn't see at the time we wrote the offer, and they probably had no knowledge of as well. So the way we address these defects and the way we negotiate for the inspection is pretty important. Things that we want to avoid doing is at the outset of when we write our offer to enter into that offer with the intent of renegotiating on inspection. That kind of sets you up for failure, because if we go in there and just throw a high offer at them and say, I'm just going to renegotiate this thing down and I'm just going to screw that price way down on inspection, we're setting ourselves up for some difficulties. Trust me, after our several years of experience with this, we're setting ourselves up for some problems. So when we talk about health and safety issues, we're looking at those things that are not necessarily code. Code's a funny thing because the codes change continuously. For example, if you found the house of your dreams that was built in the 1930s, I guarantee you that the building and construction codes are different from the codes today. So if you get your inspection report and your inspector tells you this is not up to code, that doesn't necessarily mean that this is a bad house. It doesn't mean that it's not a safe house. It just means that the construction materials, the way that they've built, the sizes of the timbers, perhaps some of the elements in the home, it's not to the standard that we would build today, but it doesn't necessarily make it bad or unsafe. Let's stay focused when we're doing our inspection negotiations on the big prize. The big prize is, I really want this house. And what we want to do as buyer's agents is make sure that you get into it safely, protect your interests, and that you're not taking on something that you're not comfortable taking on. Now let's say, for example, we find things that are near the end of their life. Things like a furnace, things like a water heater, things like a roof, things like a swimming pool surface, decks. These are all things that they wear out over time. Generally, what we do is we approach this from the standpoint of a prorated cost to repair. So for example, if there's approximately 3 to 5 years of life left in a roof, it's not reasonable to expect that we ask the seller for a brand new roof today. A prorated amount that we negotiate is a more appropriate approach. The same thing with a furnace, a water heater, things like that. Let's say that they say, you're going to have to replace this water heater sometime in the next 5 years. Okay, it's not reasonable to ask them for a brand new water heater to be installed or the cost of a new water heater right now during the inspections. So we try to think about an approximate prorated cost for these things. Now, the seller is not obliged to negotiate with us on those things, but often what they do is realize, this is a problem that I have with my house as a seller, and I should negotiate with this party because if they found it, a replacement buyer is going to find the same thing. So at the end of the day, you as buyers need to be comfortable with the results of this inspection, It's good that you've gone through these activities because you now understand the conditions of all the systems in the home, and it's your decision with our guidance to decide how much of the responsibility for these repairs is going to be on you. If you decide it's just overwhelming, that's fine. In writing, we release from the contract during the inspection period, and we go and find you a home that's a little bit better suited to your needs and your skill set. But if you say, you know what, I've spoken to some contractors, I can deal with these obstacles as long as I get a price concession or a credit towards closing costs, then let's move forward. As always, we're here to answer questions for you. Please call us, text us, email us. We look forward to hearing from you here at the Gilson Home Group.